Hello again, and welcome to the second episode of the series that will explain changing dreaming by Heralds of Gehenna. Again, it is me, the Herald of the Win-Win, here ready to explain this amazing game to you. So, let's start. Let me introduce you to the basic lore for this game. Just the basics. Changelings divide their history in different eras. The first is the Mythic era, which is pretty much way back, way before the Iron Age. In this time, the Fomorians ruled the world and humans live in fear. Fairies being pretty European creatures. So the game kinda takes from that Celtic mythology, the Tuatha Dé and the Fomorians, as the Genesis myth of fairies. So, humans live in fear. But here's the thing, humanity started to dream about freedom, about hope, and so came the Tuatha Dé Danann, an opposing force to these chaotic creatures that were the Fomorians. And, their kin, the fairies. Also kind of born from different kind of dreams the human had. So, pretty much, there was a war that was called the War of Trees. It had a different name on a language I cannot recall now. The Terraconta? I think it is the Terraconta. Oh, the War of Dreams. The Fomorians lose. They were trapped in the dreaming. The Talain, which is pretty much the kin, the opposite from the Kidain, which is pretty much what you play in the game, were also trapped, forsaken in the dreaming. And the Tuatha left, and the fairies, live their lives in their societies side by side with humanity. By the time the world wasn't so much divided, the dreaming and the mortal world, so fairies could go way and back and forth, and it was okay. And here's the thing, humans set up in settlements, and they discovered iron, and they started to believe less. They became more stagnant in their way of thinking, and the adaptive, chaotic nature of fairies, follow that, because somehow humans have this sort of like control over fairies. What they dream, what they think of the fairies, kind of become part of the nature. That's why iron, specifically called iron, wounds fairies. So yeah, after that, after 10 Valerians, it came the Sundering, roughly by 1000 BCE, between 1400 CE, so roughly by the bubonic plague. The dreaming, this world of dreams cut itself from the human world, because humans stop believing. And this is what happens, in the Middle Ages. Fairies were living on a medieval society, lords and ladies, and the lords, the Shi, as they are called, a specific kind of fairy, pretty much trampled over the peasants, every other kind of fairy, running back to Arcadia, leaving the peasants behind here to die, and, doesn't really matter, they didn't care. Which kind of takes us to the next era, which is the interregnum, the time between. So here's the thing. During the interregnum goes from the bubonic plague to the moon landing. During this time, most commoners, they make do. They discover the changeling way, which we already mentioned. They hide themselves in human forms, condemning their memories onto the moon landing. This is called as the resurgence. All of humanity was looking at the sky, dreaming the same dream. The impossible happened, mankind reached the moon. And that opens the gateways to Arcadia, and many nobles came back. Not bearing gifts, they didn't know why they came back. They were maybe expelled from Arcadia. They actually forgot. The mists make them forgot, and we're going to talk about the mists, in some other video. And here's the thing, they were not nice people. Back then, they were not nice. Right now, they came in, after leaving commoners to rot, and they wanted, their lands back. The commoners didn't have it, and there was a war. And commoners lost on most countries. So these nobles pretty much reset the fairy society to a medieval organization, lords and ladies. So now fairies have to live this double life. The real world, more egalitarian, and they have to answer to a lord or lady of a thing. Little bit after that, there was the Evanescence, which kind of happened in the 90s, the Gulf War, the 9/11, all of those awful events in the 90s pretty much made many Talain, many children of the Fomorians, the enemies, the natural enemies of the Kitain, what you will play as, came back. And now, there are more enemies on the fray. As fairies, they have to fight for the scraps of glamour, of dreamers, of whatever they can get on a world that no longer dreams or believe in them. And so on, by the 2000s was a really dark time. There was this war against the Talain, glamour, which is pretty much the thing of dreams, the energy you will use to cast powers, to cast your spells, and also pretty much what keeps you alive. It is, reducing and reducing. Nobles are ignoring commoners, and by 2020 or late 2010, there is this absolute necessity for a change. The dark court is growing. More people are finding themselves aligned to it. The division between nobles and commoners is also growing. There are conflicts between the noble houses. All of these while you have to keep these two lives. So yeah, this game is not all about wins and whatnot. That is the nice part, the dichotomy, the contrast, between the light and, the shadows and the colors and, the grayscales. So yeah, that's pretty much an introduction to the lore of Changeling. I'll see you on the next video, and I hope you like it. If you have any questions, any recommendations, you can comment below and I will absolutely answer them. If you know Spanish, we are way ahead on this series on the Spanish part of the channel, so yeah, you can check those videos. Bye bye.